ladies and gentlemen, there are some people who simply believe that Keefe D can beat the Tupac murder case by simply staying silent and not testifying on his own behalf. Is that true or not true? Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into some of this straight game.
Life is like the cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy Delray, Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. Also, subscribe to the channel. Like I always say, if you want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of the straight game, please do me a favor and click on what appears to be that little bell notification right below this video. I'm going to get right into it. Like I said, welcome back, Straight Game TV. Your boy Delray in the building. Tonight, like I said, we're going to dig into the latest Tupac Shakur murder trial in regards to ex-gangster Keefe D, Duane Davis, the man who confessed multiple times to being directly involved in the setup that killed Tupac, is allegedly giving himself a fighting chance, ladies and gentlemen, a fighting chance to walk away a free man. And you may ask yourself, well, how? And that reason is by staying silent, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Despite bragging to police, the media, and even in his own book, Keefe D is now basically refusing to testify or repeat those confessions in court. And according to legal experts, that could put prosecutors under serious pressure, if you believe that, right? This comes from a young lady by an attorney by the name of Jamie Wright. Basically, she had spoke out about this a while ago, and like I said, I just wanted to cover this because I think it's very interesting from a attorney perspective, and you know, based on all of the stuff that we've heard, as you just heard me say, you know, through the media, through his book, and all of those things, right? So the prosecution has the burden of proof, as most of us know, and it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt, right? If there's any kind of doubt, then the jury can say not guilty. Usually they do. Sometimes they don't, right? Or the jury could even be hung and not really come to any kind of conclusion, right? Now check this out. She said that she also said that by invoking his right to remain, his Fifth Amendment right, which is the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, Keefe D places the entire burden on the prosecution. That means the jury will only hear what the state brings, right? Not him incriminating himself, like kind of like with the Sean P. Diddy Combs situation, where Puffy didn't take the stand and basically let the prosecution put on their witnesses and only cross-examine the prosecution's witnesses, right? That silence could either make him look guilty or it could save him, ladies and gentlemen, and that would be all depending on how well the prosecution presents their case, right? And here's the problem. The problem with confessions, right? Here's the crazy part. Keefe D has confessed multiple times, ladies and gentlemen. Multiple times, right? This is the problem with confessions. In tape police interviews back in 2008 and in 2009, right? In his book, The Compton Street Legend, right? In interviews with media outlets, the Art of Dialogue, as well as Vlad, as well as other outlets on YouTube and outside of YouTube, and even on camera, talking about the night of September 7th, 1996 in Las Vegas. But now, Keefe D is saying he made it all up for money and fame, basically. But now, you know, the twist in this, this was, like I said, a couple of months ago, he was basically saying, I made it all up for the money and the fame, right? His lawyer at the time, Carl Arnold, right? At the time, Keefe D now has new representation, if you will. So he has two new lawyers, high profile lawyers, who Keefe D deems more effective and efficient in going forward with his representation, right? And trying to block those old tape interviews from even being played in court, calling them legally problematic and worthless. That's what Carl Arnold was saying back then. But now that Keefe D has new attorneys, it's going to be interesting to see how they proceed. And I'm sure, almost certain, that they're going to try to file motions to keep that those confessions out of court. The one that I see problematic is the 2009 interview, in which was done by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And like I said, once again, Keefe D has also shifted back from the I did it for money and fame, right? He's now shifted it back to the fact that he's saying that Sean P. Diddy Combs, in fact, did put a hit on Tupac and Suge Knight, ladies and gentlemen. So like I said, the seesaw, the flip-flopping is going on. But since Keefe D has obtained new legal counsel, this is what he is saying again, just like before, and in testifying and receiving what was a Queen for a Day agreement with the U.S. Attorney and Greg Kading in 2008, and then also basically repeating himself in 2009 with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, if you will, right? Listen, if the judge agrees and those recordings don't get in, what case? What is the case really built on? Nothing. Right now, as we speak, Keefe D has a motion filed with the Nevada State Supreme Court and trying to get the charges dismissed altogether based on the fact that Keefe D said that I was a government informant and that me testifying and helping the government solve other cases as well as giving them the information in the Tupac case. He said he was granted immunity. Keefe D tried that with the trial judge. It did not work because he could not produce any kind of agreement, right, that gave him immunity on a state level from that perspective, right? And there were certain conditions under the agreement that he received in 2008 that he could not speak outside of that agreement in reference to what he told the U.S. Attorney's Office, and Keefe D did that, and that was, in fact, what made the so-called proffer agreement, right, null and void. It voided it out, right? And so, like I said, you know, there's a possibility, I think a thin possibility that the judge agrees, because the judge has already said no, she doesn't agree with that. Judge Kearney, no, she doesn't agree with that, and set the trial date for February of 2016. So now, right, the pressure on the prosecution, usually, right? This is why Keefe D says the real weight is on the prosecution's shoulder. This is why that, you know, he thinks that him not testifying, that the weight will now be on the prosecution. It's not enough to have old interviews and hearsay. They have to build a clean, tight case with admissible evidence. And let's be real, just because you're a prosecutor doesn't mean you're a great trial lawyer, right? That's where it all boils down to, right? So, you know, coming in, being able to present a effective case, convince the jury, you know, that, you know, they have their man, and so on and so forth. Think about it. If the state fumbles, if the evidence doesn't line up beyond a reasonable doubt, then Keefe D could walk free, all because of silence. That strategy, family, that's chess, not checkers. So it possibly could work. It possibly could not work. A lot of people think when I present, you know, this straight game, they think that I don't have a personal interest in none of this. I don't have a personal interest in whether Keefe D goes to jail or whether Keefe D stays free. I think Keefe D should have more of an interest, or should have had more of an interest in that than anybody should have had. And like I said, and simply kept his mouth quiet, right? But he didn't. So now he finds himself in the situation that he's in, right? Now, let's talk about the jury, right? The jury factor in this, and don't forget about the jury. Juries are instructed to only consider evidence presented inside of the courtroom. No TV, no documentaries, no social media clips. They can't match what we've seen over the years, right? All those videos of Keefe D bragging, right? So they can't watch none of that, if you will. So, like I said, now that's if the videos are not included as evidence or should allowed to be presented as evidence on the prosecution side. If they are, then they can be watched, right? I think that's going to be a real as far as the argument and what Keefe D basically was saying earlier, I think that might be the reason why the attorneys switch back to the old strategy, right? Him saying that, he did it on behalf of Sean P. Diddy Combs. There was this $1 million bounty on Tupac and Suge, and somehow, some way, that was the real reason behind that. Will that work? We don't know, right? But like I said, the jury, right? They can't watch what we've seen over the years, all those videos of Keefe D bragging and saying all of the things that he said on the internet, right? So the jury may never hear the confessions of the same way we have. Instead, they'll see an older man sitting quietly at the defense table saying not a word, right? And in the eyes of the law, silence is not guilt. It's his constitutional right to stay silent. Keefe D's constitutional right, right? And so, like I said, when you take everything into consideration, will it work, right? So here's the question. Is Keefe D outsmarting the system, or will he outsmart the system? Or is this just a delay before the truth catches up with him? You know what I mean? Because on one hand, his silence forces the prosecution to step up and prove their case without him giving them any ammo, right? On the other hand, the jury might look at all those prior confessions, if they are allowed in as evidence, like I said before, right? And decide he talked too much for too long to be innocent. Once again, they might, if these video confessions and all of these things are allowed in, right? They may decide, that Keefe D talked too much for too long to be innocent. And certain things that he said was given in such detail that he could not possibly be lying. But like I said, with the new strategy that they went back to, which basically was the first strategy, that somehow, some way, Sean P. Diddy Combs put a hit on Suge Knight and Tupac, and he asked Keefe D to carry it out. And Keefe D had agreed, and the night in Vegas was time for that. Like I said, once again, there's also this other element which Keefe D also talked about, which we didn't know anything about. Now, will that still stand? The Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. Basically being the mastermind. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, two things can be true at the same time. Please get out your feelings and what you think about what this is about. I'm not in my feelings. You know what I mean? So when I'm speaking this, I'm saying, okay, this is what's being said by the person who is now in the Metropolitan Detention Center. This was being said in his book. This was being said on the Art of Dialogue. This was being said on Vlad. These are the explanations and things that he gave. This is what he said when they rolled up on the car that him and Suge locked eyes. These are all of the statements that Keefe D has made, right? Anybody trying to argue anything other than that, basically you're talking about what you feel. And, your feelings are however they're relevant, right? You have a right to your feelings, but your feelings don't make you right. And so, like I said, none of us are right. I'm not even right. Like I said, I'm giving you this straight game based on the information and the probability and the strategies that can possibly be taken or not taken, right? Either way, ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. Either way, the trial is shaping up to be one of the most fascinating courtroom battles in hip-hop history. We're talking about Tupac Shakur, y'all. You know what I mean? So what do you think? Is Keefe D's silence going to save him? Or will his past words bury him once and for all? Drop your thoughts in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. Like I say, I'm your boy Delray Richardson. And more importantly, tell me what you think. Truly, honestly, tell me what you think, because we're getting closer and closer to February. And before you know it, it's going to be here. So like I said, that's why I've been kind of moving in this direction, because it's very important that, like I said, one, think about everything that's being presented, as well as the lawyers, his new attorneys. Like I said, they got their hands full. There's a lot of evidence and documentation, ladies and gentlemen, that we haven't seen. I did the video in regards to the little brown box, right? And there's a lot of evidence in that box that I'm sure we don't know anything about that probably is going to be admissible in court, right? Based on the fact that Keefe D had gave so many interviews and statements and so many confessions in regards to this situation, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said before, your boy Delray, straight gang.
Blackjack. Life is like some cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.